We are live from Auckland Park in Johannesburg, and it's that time of the evening when we engage with you on matters that affect you, matters that affect your family, matters that affect your community. Tonight on the program, accountability in sharp focus. Why? Because it's topical. Hey, a very good evening to you, South Africa, those watching around the world. My name is Blaine Herman, and this is It's Topical. Our digital audience, please, Mr. Valentine, thank you very much indeed. It's good to have them on the program. We're going to get their burning questions and comments in a short while. And just remember, digital audience, if you have a burning question or comment, put up your virtual hand, and I'll do my very best to get you on air. A key word to kick off the new year: accountability. The fact or condition of being accountable, someone who is completely responsible for what they do and must be able to give a satisfactory reason for it. That's the Cambridge Dictionary meaning. Investopedia's definition: it's an acceptance of responsibility for honest and ethical conduct towards others. And this word threads through three of the most topical stories of this year so far. The governing party in South Africa, the ANC, on the lips of many over the last couple of weeks. The party's 111th anniversary, the 55th National Conference, the policies that have been rubber-stamped, the leadership that the party has put forward, a culture of accountability. Is this apparent within the governing party? We shall explore this in greater detail. What about racism? The ANC president, during the January 8th statement, calling on the Nakedi boys to stand next to him, saying they were subjected to cruel acts of racism and humiliation by old white men at a Free State resort. We do not want racists in South Africa. If you want to practice your racist tendencies in South Africa, it's not the place. President Cyril Ramaphosa's words. So, who should be held accountable? And at a broader level, who should stand up and stop these incidents from happening in the first place? Accountability, we shall discuss. The gas tanker explosion in Boksburg, horrifying, tragic, over 30 people killed. How can we prevent this from happening ever again? Accountability again. Which leads us to the question of the week. And we're asking you, with regards to the Boksburg tank explosion, who shall be held accountable? Let us know at It's Topical SABC. Walk with me while we get you more context. So basically, I want to explore the issue of best practice regarding the tank explosion versus the legal requirements. Also, are drivers being trained adequately? Are they taught how to react in different scenarios? We shall discuss at It's Topical SABC. Now to this. All right, let's touch on some of the other topical stories of the day. ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa's January 8th speech was keenly watched by members of the public across the country, and those in attendance, especially in party regalia, also took notes. SABC news reporter Gamgelo Sikoi spoke to them after the president's speech. Take a look.
The president is clear in terms of unity and bringing everyone who has violated whatever resolutions that were taken in the conference, and whoever who's not in line with party line must be dealt with decisively. So
I think we are well equipped to end this thing at GBV, and I'm confident that social development will come with some strong policies and also laws on how to end this thing of GBV.
The first move that the president made, he made sure Uguti changes the CEO, the executive, Westcom, to show Uguti this change ahead. And also, we should also acknowledge Uguti, this is a very, very huge problem. It's been happening for quite some time.
Well, ordinary South Africans seem to take a different view, especially on the issue of poor service delivery in some parts of the country. Let's hear what you had to say on this regard.
every year on the 8th of January, it's promises after promises. And they don't even come, and we don't see any evidence of their promises they made.
Because NC ayeti next no bana ba runa ba ruta dikokokong ba ba heli diskolo ha rena skontiri re tsamaya letageng ntho engwe le engwe tje ha yetsi next ditlo tsa runa di aneta ke since ba re tshepisa rona ba tla re tsetsa ntho tsenana since re eme fela ha ba dintsi re a vota ha ona ntho etsehalang. The
ANC only promised us something, but we never like now housing. Now you see, we colors we struggling with the houses because of the ANC. Because now we're thinking what does the ANC do for the community?
I don't believe in the ANC, and I don't believe in the promises they've made. They have failed in every way possible.
Because like isn't there's ziyaleka to ANC indlela asecurity ibhedlela ama patient awanakwa esibhedlela nezikolo asekho right ikolo.
Your views matter on this program. So, delivering the January 8th statement in Bloemfontein, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa said that the renewal and the unity of the ANC is now unstoppable, adding that it is going forward despite those who want to deter it. The ANC highlighted an immediate action plan comprised of various factors to, well, turn the country around, they say. The plan includes renewal, employment of the youth, the fight against corruption, as well as strengthening the alliance, the tripartite alliance. To discuss this further, let me bring in via Zoom political analyst Mapaseka Muroa. Good to have your better mind on the program, Mapaseka. Welcome to It's Topical.
Thank you so much for having me, Blaine.
So the January 8th statement, there's the noble aims, I guess, to improve service delivery. But the big question is, can these promises be kept? Should South Africans still believe in the promise of a better tomorrow? What's your take?
Look, I think there's currently a lot of euphoria in the African National Congress. The generational shift within the National Executive Committee, particularly, the election of the Secretary General Fikile Mbalula, sort of reviving the ANC Youth League or the spirit thereof. So there's a lot of excitement in that regard. But historically speaking, we know that excitement does not necessarily equate to action, particularly in government. You look at, these promises they're making, these policies they've put forth, and they're still grappling with the same issues, for a while, the unemployment, the energy issue, the inequality, etc. It's the same issues that they've been grappling with for a while. But the main issue here is that the African National Congress has gone rogue in government by not implementing their own policies. So historically speaking, excitement does not equate to action and governance.
Let's look at some of the issues that will prevent action being taken, especially within the party itself. Mr. Ramaphosa at the ANC Gala dinner said there's no longer any room left for those who are opposed to the renewal process, going on to say that there's no longer any room left at all for those who want to sow seeds of division within the ANC. Strong words, but how do you think this will play out practically?
Look, I think there are two things at play here. President Matamela needs to ensure that there is unity within the party, but he also needs to ensure that there is accountability, which is what renewal, I would imagine, is about. But, it's questionable whether the two ideas can actually coexist within the African National Congress, particularly because, a majority, a good number of those individuals that have been implicated in that state capture report are of the so-called RET faction. So it's questionable whether the two ideas can really coexist, because if he does ensure that the people that are implicated implicated in that report actually account for their actions, or their alleged actions rather, then there might be a risk of unity within the political party. So he needs to ensure that he doesn't fracture the party, but at the same time there is accountability. And also he needs to think about his legacy. I mean, you look at the other issues in the African National Congress, right? The energy issue. The president doesn't have the best of ideas. I would argue that the minister Mantashe actually has a better understanding of what to do in terms of baseload and the utilization of hybrid energy, coal, renewable energy, gas, nuclear, so forth. So that can be his legacy. Unemployment as well is something that he's grappled with but hasn't been able to fully fix. The fact that he wants to his ideas, foreign direct investment, there's internships for graduates, but there's not sustainable way to deal with that particular issue. So ensuring that the people implicated in the state capture report, that is a way that he can find a decisive.
Mapaseka, are you still with us? It seems that we might have lost Mapaseka. Mapaseka, the political analyst. You still with us? Go on, just complete your last thought. We just lost you for a bit there.
But I'm not so sure if that's good for the unity of the African National Congress.
Right. I just want to squeeze in one more question, if I can, with regards to the alliance partners, and if you place any weight in terms of the harmony of the alliance partners and its contribution towards service delivery. There was a call for strengthening of the alliance. The ANC has long been grappling with the form the alliance should take in the democratic era, the need for the alliance to be reconfigured. What would a reconfiguration look like for you?
First thing would be ensuring that in terms of the ANC decisions, they include the SACP and COSATU. So it's not just a matter of ensuring that, they include the SACP members and COSATU members in the cabinet reshuffle, but also in terms of policy. So I would imagine that when it comes to the cabinet reshuffle, the president will include the likes of Buti Manamela, Dr. David Masondo, and so forth. But also ensure that COSATU has a say in terms of what happens going forward. There has been that looming threat of, a fracture in the alliance, and particularly the SACP saying that they are ready to actually stand for election. But now the question becomes, has the SACP actually been in touch with the ground? Have they been in touch with the people? Do they have enough support to actually stand for election? But also the association that the SACP has had with the African National Congress, has that tainted the image of the SACP, because they have been complicit in the shortcomings of the African National Congress, particularly because they've had cabinet positions, the like of Ndata Blade and Zamande, who literally laughed in the faces of young people as they were, demonstrating for fee-free decolonized education, saying, well, who's going to afford that? As a communist, someone who couldn't actually grapple and actually comprehend the idea of decolonized fee-free education. So they need to understand that walking into that summit, they are also complicit in the shortcomings of the African National Congress.
Mapaseka Morowa, value added as always, and a plus for the viewers. Political analyst, thank you very much indeed for your time. All right, in the January 8th statement, ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa sent a message that South Africa is not a place for racism. Ramaphosa brought out the Nakedi brothers, who were victims of an alleged racially charged attack at a resort in the Free State. The incident, which was captured on CCTV footage, shows adult white men attacking the two teen boys in a bid to get them out of the resort pool. Ramaphosa says racism is rearing its ugly head, threatening to harm the gains of democracy.
We also want to send a clear and straight message to those in our country who still want to perpetuate racism. And we say, South Africa today, we do not want racists here in South Africa. South Africa belongs to all of us. And if you practice racism, We will make sure that you feel the might of the law, because the people of South Africa will never, ever, ever allow racism to reign in our country again.
Context important. So let's remind you about what happened on Christmas Day in the Free State that caused all this outrage.
We came here to relax. It's the first time after COVID, and then we meet this kind of behavior from other South Africans.
It's only the white people who were swimming in this pool, so they didn't want our kids to come and swim as well in here, so they were chasing them away.
Not very nice, because we are all people. We must join everything. We must be happy. No more racism. That doesn't matter, because you and me, we all have the same blood, so we must enjoy everything.
Our resort is a racially free resort. We do not allow any segregation. We do not allow any racism. We do not tolerate any fighting.
All right, let's give you an overview on tonight's main discussion regarding the tanker explosion. I want to give you a sense of what we know and what we need to know. And for that, we turn to the magic wall with regards to the latest facts that we have. So up here on your screen, what we know. The LPG tanker traveling to Botswana exploded in Boksburg. We're told on Christmas Eve. The explosion caused damage to the nearby Tambo Memorial Hospital. The death toll, as you can see, this has risen to 37. The number of the hospital staff members were injured, including those who died, 35. The number of hospital staff deaths, 12. Ekurhuleni, now the EMS personnel injured there, we're told it's around 8. That number is shocking to many. And we know that families have now started to bury their loved ones. What we need to know, well, who is accountable? Basic question, right? An independent auditor was hired to investigate the circumstances of the accident. The driver and the trucking company then were cleared of misconduct. The driver was released from police custody, and the driver, we know, was also cleared by his employer, Innovative Staffing Solutions. That's what we need to know in terms of how we get to a better place where this doesn't happen again. That's the current state of play. The Gauteng government has estimated that the repairs to the hospital could cost up to 18 million rand. So earlier in the week, we took our cameras to the funeral of the 4 Brit siblings who lost their lives in the explosion. Here's what some of the mourners had to say regarding who they believe should be held accountable for this tragedy. Take a look.
Even the bikers, thank you for everything, for your hard work. And I also thank you for my auntie Pat, who also do something for us.
This is what should justice look like? You know, it's a really difficult question to answer. It's an accident. It was an accident. You know, nobody could have planned this. Nobody could have said this is exactly what's going to happen. You know, what should happen from here is public should be educated a little bit. You know, instead of running to a tragedy, run away from it. There's nothing that we can do to bring these people back.
Ons kan nie almal blame. Ons moet van voor af kyk waar is die fout. Hierdie mense is baie seer gekry, hierdie kindertjies onnodig. En ons almal doen dit maar. Almal hardloop en kyk wat se probleem. Maar ja, nou het ons geleer, ons het 'n les geleer.
I just say, you know, there's no blame there, just that how the families can get over this. And I think it's important that we take this and look at the safety of our roads in the future. You know, we all do that sometimes, go look at an accident. Let's just be more careful and vigilant.
It is a tragedy. It's very, very sad what happened. Yeah, we just had to lend our support in that today. The truck should not have been there as far as I'm concerned. And there should be reparation. There really and truly there should be reparation. That's what I feel.
We would like to say to the family, let God strengthen them. They must put their trust unto the Lord. Whoever who's accountable for this, the law, it will take its place.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it? But we have to listen to the families. We have to see these visuals in order for us to form the strategy of getting to that better place that we always talk about. I want to bring in now my colleague, Hlela Mqoqo. She's with the family members of the Boksburg explosion victims. They are gathered at a house of another family member. Hlela, good to have you on the program. Healing, as you know, is a process. No doubt the emotional wounds from this explosion is still raw. How are the families coping?
Thank you so much, Blaine, and welcome to Boksburg. We are in Boksburg with two family members. The one family lost two family members and a tenant that lives in this house. And the second mother, her house was almost destroyed in the explosion on the 24th of December. When everyone else was preparing for Christmas Day, being cheerful and happy, these families were going through a difficult time, losing their loved ones, and the other family lost a home. And at this point in time, they're finding it very difficult to move on because life has changed as they have known it for the past few years. So we're here to talk to Sarah and Ndombokala. They are both going to take us through their ordeal over the few weeks after that fateful day. Welcome, Sandra. Please take us through the few minutes before the explosion.
Thank you for having me here. The day for 24th December 2022, it's something that I do not want to remember. A few minutes before the final explosion, I was standing by my gate, my maroon gate. It was from there I took my daughter, who was my nephew was holding my daughter, so I took my daughter and we started going up with my sister up towards to her house. Just as we were covered by the Jura wall, then the final explosion happened. I was holding my 3-month-old baby and my other 2 kids were in my sister's house. That's when the final explosion happened.
And who did you lose in the explosion?
My sister's husband, he passed away, and his son, they passed away.
How is life for your sister after losing her husband and her child?
It's something that is difficult. Imagine losing your husband and son on the same day. It's very stressful. I know she's seeming strong, but she's not strong. And the daughter is in the ICU. So you can imagine how, can I say, traumatizing it is. And there's no words that can describe how she is. Even us, just knowing that we lost our brother-in-law and his son, it's beyond, words cannot explain how we are feeling at the moment.
You told me that this morning you lost a tenant, one of your tenants, who was also involved in this explosion. Please take us through that moment when she passed away.
Her sister came, she's around, so they only told me that she passed away. But she got burnt when she was outside washing her clothes. So it's not like she was watching what was happening. She was not watching. She was just minding her own business, and then she got burnt. Then she was taken to the hospital. So days later, she only passed away today.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Ndombokala Blaine, she is the person who almost lost her home. At this point in time, she says it's even difficult to find a place to sleep in her own home. But she will take us through her ordeal and the experience that she is still going through as we speak. Ndombokala, khawusixelele kwenzeke ntoni?
Angeke ngisho kakuhle mntanami, bengekho mina, ngifike ngo-10 to 10 la ngibuye eCakani. ngithi ngi-Uber uma ugogo efona ethi angisheshe ngifike uzolika usesibhedlela lo bengishiye lapha ekhaya lo bathi ushonile khona la lento ngiphatha kabuhlungu sisi ngoba ushona nomzulwana wakhe nathi la ekhaya konakele nje if meko busuku benzohamba nobona nangokwini ukuthi kunjani nalapha ya okwesithathu masingancedwa ukuthi kulungiswe umzulu wesalukazi naye athole ukuncedo njengabodokotela into ezinjabona 84 years ngiyakhala ngiyanqenqeza ngiyabonga ukuthi abantu bancede lo mama lona ngoba ngesikhathi kumsebenze.
So nilala njani ngoku mama pha endlini?
Kuba ngisho mina ngilala endlini nogogo vele isitalo mari makwenzeke lento ngesabalela kamera uba libhobokile ngaphandle la kugcwele ama-cracks manje ngathatha isofa ngayibeka la epassage ngilala esofeni lapho ukuthi ngimuze makangidinga ngiyokwazi yomsiza.
Loluphi ke ngokuncedo eningathanda ulifumana ngoku?
Uncedo bese ngathanda ulifumana ukuthi alungisele umuzi wakhe, abantu bonke bamncede kulungise umuzi wakhe akwazi ukuhlala kahle usebenzisa oxygen umuntu nezinye izinto yakhe ezisho eTV ke usebenzisa izo zinto zinjalo ke. Manje bengacela nje ngiyacela ancedwe le mama nami ngiyazama ukuthi umngani wami kwehle kimi enhlizweni yami namanje ngiyafuna emngcwabeni wakhe kusasa angikhona ake umuntu ongishiya naye ugogo la ngoba kanabantwana.
Enkosi kakhulu mama. Well, Blaine, Mam Domokala is saying her employee, who is 84 years old, almost lost her home. At this point in time, her home doesn't even have a roof. They are only using one room in that whole house. Even when they have to cook, it's difficult for them to actually cook and prepare meals for the old 84-year-old lady. And she says that she even has to use oxygen and other medications for her illnesses, but it's still difficult for them to help her and continue with life as normal because of what has happened, because the house is almost destroyed. She says if it was during the day, she will be taking us to the house to show us what actually happened and how the house is looking at this point in time. She says she lost 2 friends in the explosion, and as you can see, she's emotional. She's not coping with everything that has happened on the day. And we hear that 2 more people died this morning. A tenant that was staying in Sandra's house, and there's another cook who was cooking at an old age home. So the number has actually risen now to 39 people from the 37 people that were reported about 3 days ago. So life as we speak at this point in time in Boksburg is difficult because people don't know if their loved ones who are still in hospital are still going to continue to live or what's going to happen to them tomorrow. Back to you, Blaine.
Yeah, it's tough to hear these stories, but it is necessary to hear these stories. It's about for us, it's about a common concern and a collective will to help each other heal, isn't it? It's about binding together, to become interconnected in the face of tragedy. Klela, appreciate your reporting. Klela Nkote. All right, let's further this discussion. We need to get some answers. We've got the right people in studio. We also have our digital audience as well. Mary Padi is the president of the Truckers Association of South Africa, as well as Namrita Savsanka, CEO of Hope SA Foundation. Good to have you ladies on the program. Digital audience, remember, if you have any comments, you want to jump into the conversation, please raise your virtual hand. I'll do my very best to get you on air. Mary, to you first. We talk about accountability today. Who should be held accountable for this tragedy?
Firstly, let's just send our condolences to the family and, to say that it is just one of those unfortunate circumstances. As truckers, really, we are pleading with the family. Looking at who must be held responsible, we need to look at, beyond that and ask ourselves that, you know, the Department of Transport, this is part of the mode of transport. What is it that freight industry is doing when they transport this product on the road? What is it that the department is doing to the companies who are operators that are transporting this product to the road? We need to be saying to ourselves, because we only started the safety awareness campaign, you know, about 3 weeks ago, we need to be saying that we must all take responsibility. We must be asking ourselves that, you know, what the communication with the driver, you know, that's a residential area. You know, where was the control room at that time? And if you look at the, you know, the training requirements of the driver in terms of the safety, health and safety, safety file that is needed when you transport something, it was all done. Hence, the investigation is saying the driver has been cleared. But we need to be asking ourselves a question of saying, how far is the Department of Transport relationship with the freight industry? When we are there, we'll be able to answer all these questions by saying that let us hold the Department of Transport accountable for this situation that has happened, because we've been calling for that.
In what way should you be holding them accountable? Is it in terms of better education, better training, better interaction with associations like yourself? Where would you pinpoint the issue?
You look back at the regulation of the industry. It was deregulated in 1988. We are living with the apartheid laws as we are talking, and the democracy came in 1994. So therefore, because of that, we need to be saying to the Department of Transport, we have warned you. You know, when you sit around the table and you start warning, things like this wouldn't have happened if they are quickly to respond to whatever that needs to happen. So practically,
what would you need to change in order to get us to a better
You
place?
need to have an operating license as an operator. You need to be taking, if for example, here's an accident that has happened in any accident, we should not look at this, because we should be talking about the life lost in South Africa. This has happened. Companies and operator license will be saying to a company, we are going to suspend you for 7 days. Look at the risk assessment. Make sure that everything is in place. The same company in Musina had the same accident. So it means life goes on there. And we cannot afford to do that. And we should not be lying to ourselves. All operators must take responsibility of the goods that they are transporting.
So we obviously will get the Department of Transport to get their take in terms of this issue. But in terms of a journey plan and a risk assessment, is it legally required? Is it a legal requirement to have this in place?
Company is internal. You do everything, because the driver must do the training of to convey the dangerous goods. They must get a certificate, and there's a tram card that they must carry in the truck, so that it can tell us what kind of a product that they are transporting at that specific time. And therefore it's never enough, because only a company knows about that, but the government does not know. And if the government is close to do everything that is happening in the freight industry, like any other mode of transport, they would have been saying today, you know, company, is your responsibility, despite the fact that you are cleared, but take a responsibility of stopping your trucks and make sure that everything is in place before you can start moving again.
Namrita, let me bring you in. Your foundation is part of it focuses on disaster relief. When you hit the ground, what did you find?
So we got to Boksburg, I think a day after the explosion had happened. Media had told public that there was help on the ground and there were NGOs assisting. So when we got there, we were quite surprised that there weren't any NGOs on the ground. And there were public community groups that were rallying together to assist families, you know, helping them with food and rallying just to give them support, moral support as well. And we went house to house visiting each family to see what damage had been done. And like Felicia, who was just on Zoom, we visited her house, and her employee is Henrika, and she's 84 years old. And her home is badly damaged because it's right next to the explosion spot. And you'd find her ceilings are broken, and there's wires hanging loose. So when we got there, we realized that it was very unsafe for her to be in the property. And nobody had went through and had a look and told people, you know what, this is a health risk, this is a safety risk. So you need to move out of the areas that are unsafe. So Felicia was sleeping in a room where there's a wall that's about to collapse. And we had to move her out of that room so that there's no further risk involved. And we are assisting families on the ground with repairs to their homes, because you found people were sleeping with their windows bust. You know, the explosion had bust all the windows. So through the rain and all of that, they were still sleeping with no windows in the properties.
We need to discuss what lessons we can learn. Also, our digital audience at Landless Queen, Tariq, I can see your hands. We're going to come back to you in a short. We need to take a quick break. In tragedy, there's always lessons to learn. What are these lessons? Quick break. We'll discuss later on. Welcome back. We're talking accountability, and this word basically ties in three of the top stories that's, been on the lips of many this year. We're talking about racism, we talk about the ANC's 111th birthday, but we're also talking about the explosion in Boksburg. What can we learn? Let's bring in our digital audience now and get your take. Tariq, you've got your hands up. Give us your take in terms of the Boksburg explosion. Lessons to learn from here.
Absolutely. No, thank you. I think first and foremost, thank you for the platform. I think that it's important that the public has an opinion in terms of all matters relating to what's happening in our nation. In saying that, I think the first thing that I need to say is that the correct question from my perspective that we would need to ask is not necessarily who needs to be held accountable, but where do we assist? And I think as a South African public, we are very, very not vulnerable. We fall risk to the fact that we are more willing to speak about accountability and not necessarily assisting where we should assist. And don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely saying that we need to hold people accountable. But first and foremost, we as South Africans need to put our money where our mouth is, and we need to say that how do we assist? How do we get involved? There are families, it was our mothers and our fathers who lost their lives, who lost their homes. Where do we come in and where do we assist? In speaking to the issue of accountability, now, please don't get me wrong here. I'm not trying in any way to defend the Department of Transport. I think if they need to be held accountable, absolutely. But my question, and I think I have a bit of a confusion here, is relating to that of the representative from the Truckers Association of South Africa. And that is that of regulation. And so basically, from what I understood, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, the Department of Transport should basically be held accountable because they did not hold the trucking company accountable for an incident that may have happened many years ago in Messina, for example. My concern and my question is, why are we not then holding the trucking company accountable directly? And I do know of the report that was recently published, but I mean, even that report, there have been many concerns raised. I know that a couple of workers' unions had raised the concern about the fact that the report was done remotely and not at the scene of the incident. And so that's where my concern comes in, is why are we not then holding the trucking company accountable, as well as speaking to the fact that we then need to ask, where is the Department of Transport in this matter?
Let's take it to Mary, Tariq, and get your response with regards to the accountability of the trucking company. What's your take?
It is because of the internal processes that each company has. The internal processes says that you have a control room where you'll be able to check where your truck is. You've got a tracking device that is monitoring the process of the goods that you are carrying. So at the end of the day, when you are traveling on the road, there's nothing that is stopping you from being there. Hence, that driver, even though he has diverted, there's nothing that anyone can do about it. But if you then go back to the operating license, you will be able to say, we are grounding flights in South Africa. If something is wrong with the flights, we can quickly get a message tomorrow, we've grounded this. Why are we not doing the same thing with the operators? Because the minute we say we are stopping you for this period of time, you are not allowed to be on the road, then it means everybody will take responsibility because they'll think about it.
Yeah, important point. Let's go to at Landless Queen. If you can unmute, go ahead. Do we have at Landless Queen?
Hi, Blaine.
We can hear you loud and clear. Your comment or question?
You can hear me. Thank you very much. Blaine, I won't speak much to the Boksburg incident. However, my condolences to the people that have lost their loved ones in that incident. And I do believe that there is a case for a class action suit against the municipality and the Department of Public Works, Roads and right? what I would like to give input on is the incident in the Free State.
Right.
You know, Blaine, there is a quotation. I actually don't know. I've tried to search. I don't know who said this, but what the person says is that white people are lucky that black people only want equality and not revenge. I've had situations where I've had to deal with racists, white racists, you know, and you know, to the extent that, I beat them up, 3 white people, because they were racist. I beat them up. And so when it comes to the incident of the pool, when I saw it, I was like, I really wish I was there. I really wish I was there. One thing about white people in South Africa is that they don't appreciate the privilege that they have as white people. They don't appreciate the fact that we as black people actually have given them the leeway to be citizens in this country, whereas they are descendants and they've inherited stolen land, you know. So with regards to that incident in Free State, all I have to say is that I will reiterate the situation. White people are lucky that black people only want equality and not revenge.
I guess the bigger questions to get to the bottom of this is to answer the question of what fuels racism and what are the stumbling blocks in terms of better social cohesion and nation building. Once we get to that, I think we can put paid to these issues. Lenda Screen, thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Sarah, Yana, and then Simon in that order. Sarah.
Hi there, how you guys doing? I just wanted to firstly say my condolences to all of the families who are affected by this horrible tragedy. I'm so sorry for your loss, and I know that I have already met you all, but my heart is still very sore for you all. And I wanted to speak about the point of accountability. How I feel like this community has been failed by so many, including the emergency services, who, when it comes down to thinking about it, they had a lot of time to evacuate the community, but no one thought of doing so. Apparently, they had almost up to an hour to do so, and you could have easily went to someone who's in the community and said, "Do you guys have a group chat so we can contact?" Let everyone know to get as far as possible. And they do have one. That would have been the easiest way to get people to, leave the situation or let them know how dangerous it is, but no one did so. And also on part of the truck driver, do they not go through training to deal with these situations? I mean, that you're carrying such a hazardous liquid, and surely they should have enough training to be told what to do in emergency situations and how to evacuate the communities, and how to warn people, how to call the police or whatever to get them to evacuate. But why was that not done?
I know
that could have saved so many
with
people.
With regards to, you bring up an important point, using social media in order to get the message across. I mean, that was the quick win, isn't it? Also, with regards to the training college, I know that was muted as well, in terms of, it doesn't matter if you have a code 14, you still need to go to a training college to get those, specifics in order to drive a truck. So we'll talk about that in a short while, Mary. Yana, and then Simon.
Hi. I think one common thread that is really very present throughout this entire discussion is accountability, in the sense of how will this be enforced? And I think this is when we need to start looking back towards, do we have the governmental capacity to truly hold these people to account? And do we have systems in place within this country that reflects what the citizens view as accountability, and that truly is a reflection of our collective conscience. And I think this goes back to when we look at as our president spoke, when we look at the incident of racism, and when we also look at this horrific tragedy. It's very important to understand how are we going to hold these people accountable, and do we have systems that will consequently create similar results? And is this truly the reflection of what the people want? And I think throughout, this is something that we should keep on looking at, and this is a discussion that should be very alive, all of the different perspectives, but then we also need to see it within law enforcement, and we need to see the resources allocated towards this to ensure that these tragedies and these horrible circumstances aren't repeated, and that accountability is really something that can be brought to justice, both in small instances, but also in larger ones.
All right. Simon, then Masido.
Thank you very much. My name's Simon Lapping. Thank you to your listeners and to the show for this opportunity. Regarding this whole event, I see that we've been focusing too much on the driver here. Now, we have to remember that there's still a few more reports that are outstanding which have to come in, and there's still an ongoing investigation into this whole tragedy. But I think I always relate to the causal link, and when I say the causal link, so we have to look back way before when the laws have been created regarding transporting of flammable goods or things like that. So that's our first link, okay? So did we make a fault there? Did we let down? Did legislation let us down somehow, okay? Then we need to move on to what actually happened on the day. How did the emergency services respond? What was the next link from there on? One has to remember also, when a tragedy of this nature is not an everyday occurrence. It's not like you're going to a house fire, which firemen probably deal with on a daily basis. Dealing with an LP gas scenario is a very, very complex type of scenario, and everyone can say, well, we could have done this, we could have done that, but you've also got to be in the shoes of the fireman as well. He's also got to look at his training and his background and all that type of thing. So we have to look at that as well, and from there we can see all the links of where we went wrong and how we can improve taking this thing forward. Because at the end of the day, I do believe we could have probably had far less deaths, if not none at all, if we had followed the correct process from the legislation point of view.
Well, if anything, Simon, this is the lesson to learn, isn't it? We need to put purpose to the pain that people are experiencing currently regarding this. This can't happen again. So what lessons can we learn? We will discuss shortly. I see the hands up. We need to take a quick break. We're going to discuss further in terms of how we get to that better place. How do we prevent this from ever happening again? More next. Right, welcome back. I want to take it straight to our digital audience. Now we have 7 minutes. I want to get to as many comments as we can. Masilo, your comments, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Mine is a short and a quick one, and that's to do with the Boksburg explosion and accountability. I think what's important is that we need to come to an understanding of what exactly accountability looks like. Because in many cases, we're speaking from a place of anger and frustration at what had happened. And yes, it is indeed a tragic incident that has happened, but we also need to look at beyond that. We also have to look at ways to ensure that this never happens, and like you said in your question. So one of those ways is to ensure that besides regulations and laws that we can put in place, but to ensure that the routes and the roads and the travel, the way in which we transport hazardous material and other explosive material is secured, because this could have happened in any other populated area and could have had a bigger impact. So it's important to look at the manner in which we conduct the business of transporting these materials. But my condolences to the families that are affected, as well as hoping to ensure that they are provided with the support, such as psychosocial support, through this difficult time as well.
All right, Mr. Thank you very much indeed. Isaac, then Kidibone, as well as Lesego in that order. Isaac, to you first.
Good evening and good evening to the listeners. With regard to the whole Boksburg explosion and like accountability, this should have been something that in the first place shouldn't have happened. But then it should also have, like, since it happened, it should have been something that like we learn from. But it seems like it's something that's still going to happen, given that after the explosion happened a few weeks ago, during this past week, there was a tanker carrying acid that turned here in Musina. And then we also saw in Johannesburg, there was a tanker as well that like crashed carrying petrol. So these incidents are likely to repeat themselves. And I feel like they repeat themselves because the Department of Traffic doesn't have enough teeth and the private companies actually have more power than the government. So that's why these things are more likely to happen, since there are no like stop checks in place to keep it like from happening again.
Isaac, thank you very much indeed. Kidibone Pako, School of Government Studies. Who should be held accountable for this from your point of view?
Thanks, Blaine. 2 quick points. I thought I should maybe quickly reflect on the president's talk and just on the point of the state capture. And from where we're sitting, I think this is quite an important call that he has made. But we think that perhaps there must be very clear targets that need to come out. Of course, this will come out through government processes, but I think we need to make a call to the president to give further details to South Africans that this is what will be happening in relation to accountability on those that were found wanting. But the last point is with regard to the racism, Blaine, that this is a very long held history in South Africa. I mean, since 1948, it has been a formalized policy of government until 1994. And I think our government, through the president, must tell us what programs are in place to address racism, because we are only going to keep on reacting as and when this thing come out. So I think government must demonstrate there was a TRC process, and I think the papers are all over. So we need to go back and say, what programs are we running in the private sector, in the higher education sector, in the public sector, within the NGO sector, within tourism sector, to say we are South Africans, we are a rainbow nation, and how do we mingle with each other? Thank you.
How do we stop the hateful ideology? Good question, Kidibone. Thank you very much indeed. We've got about 3 minutes left, so I'm going to get Kim and then Hope SA. Let's go first to you.
Thanks to all the viewers who are watching, and also condolences to the families of those who passed away in the explosion. But this basically speaks to a much wider situation. And firstly, we need to look at the relation between legislation and policy, and the ability of the policy to be able to address such things, in the form of regulatory frameworks and that sort of stuff. And with the Boksburg explosion, I think it speaks to a much wider issue regarding workers and stuff like that, workers' rights and the sort. And I think we need to have a policy position whereby, or direction of policy, which is something that should be discussed at a larger national political level, whereby employees should be well vetted and checked, and we shouldn't find ourselves employing people who are undocumented, whereby companies now save their bags by hiding or covering up certain situations, and that's quite problematic.
Lesego, thank you very much indeed. Kim, to you.
Thank you. I think my comment would be to Land is Queen. Here we have a beautiful young black woman who's landless in her own land because of racism. structural racism, something that the ANC government has never dealt with. So it's all very well for the president to say there shouldn't be racism in the country, but the ANC has been far more comfortable with making white people feel comfortable than black discomfort. And the dignity of the black child has to be put first. And I think it's shameful what happened in the Free State, but it's an example of everyday South Africa. And to black South Africans, I say, white South Africans have never cared. We have no moral compass because we have never stopped the practice of racism. And the ANC government is facilitating that, not ending it.
All right, Kim, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. We will try to get a digital audience your comments and try to post it on our socials as well. Namrita, let me just give you the last word with regards to those who still want to help. How can they?
So we are still continuing with the repairs and assisting the family with school fees, because now we have many orphan children or children who've lost their parents. So people can contact us on www.hopesa.org. All our contact details are there, or outreach@hopesa.org. And, I just want to say something quickly about Kim. Kim mentioned that, there's racism is rife. And I just want to say, I deal with disaster on a regular basis. And when community comes together, we make a massive difference in helping others out there. So there's good and there's bad. So let us also celebrate the good, because I applaud everyone that comes together and has also helped families in Boksburg, because they have nobody else that has been there for them besides the community.
Yeah, Mary. Mary, as well as Namrita, thank you very much indeed for your time. No doubt this conversation continues. We will get you back onto the program as well in various platforms to discuss this legislation and how do we hold people in power accountable. Thank you very much indeed. Digital audience, as always, thank you very much indeed for your take. Here's my take. Some of us are old enough to remember Charlie Brown's teacher, yeah? Wah, wah, wah. Well, when we talk about accountability, some of us hear it as if it was coming from that teacher. But this negative perception of accountability needs to stop. Rather see it as an opportunity to recognize that something has gone wrong and then try to find a way to fix it and then move forward, right? Also, don't give up or cover up things that have gone wrong. Don't throw your hands in the air and say, well, if I can't beat them, rather join them. No. You're bound to lose a few battles in the war against corruption. Your record won't be perfect, but don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. And that's my take. Just a reminder, please go to our YouTube channel, watch this episode again, SABC, It's Topical. Until next week, my brothers and sisters, take care. Bye-bye.